Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. An increasing number of Americans believe the likelihood of a civil war is growing. Over the past 2 years, the number saying they think a civil war is anywhere from possible to likely has increased to 31%, with 40% of Republicans agreeing. There's no doubt there's a massive polarization in the country, and it's not going away, regardless of who wins the election. That's why so many are now starting to look beyond the election and are speculating on what a civil war would look like. Unlike the first one, there was a clear geographical divide, the North and the South, but this time not so much. In 2016, Trump won 30 states, Hillary won 20. But within the states that each candidate won, there was a sizable number of people who voted for the loser in their state. So a lot of Hillary supporters in Trump states, as well as a lot of Trump supporters in Hillary states. So looking at some kind of armed conflict based strictly on geography is a little more than murky. The United States of America are straight up no longer united in the most meaningful ways, philosophically and politically. Trump states and Hillary states simply hold two vastly different worldviews, and they vote accordingly. The problem for the Trump states is every time they try to enact their worldview about, say, abortion or many different things, the courts step in and kill them. This is because one simple reason: the Marxists quietly seized those courts decades ago and have now enshrined child slaughter and sodomy marriage into law, as well as a host of other evils. But enormous numbers of Americans, huge swaths of the population, vehemently disagree with these rulings, as well as many others, and they do not want to live under these dictates from judges. They do not want their children indoctrinated with Marxist ideology in government schools. They do not want them being taught homosexuality is normal, killing the preborn is a right, that their tax dollars can be exploited by criminal career politicians, and so forth. Trump captured 46% of the national vote to Hillary's 48%, neither a majority. And the final count is so close that many are wondering how the Marxist ideology is advancing across the country so fast, as if they'd won some kind of massive majority or mandate. So a discussion is arising, and it bears some deep thought, a discussion about the United States splitting up, the red states forming their own nation and the blue states forming their own. Balkanization, it's called, referring to the Balkan countries of southeastern Europe being split up. And this is just one possibility on the table, because whatever happens, the current situation is not really sustainable. The left has control of every institution in the country. The control is firm. So that the question would now begin arising that there must be some other way to secure safety, peace, and morality for families can hardly be surprising. That's why a meaningful number of voters are looking down the road and worrying about civil war as just one outcome. In some ways, the prep work for this is already starting. Political conservatives are now taking a long, hard look at the long-term benefits maybe, of remaining living and raising a family in a blue state, especially a deep blue state, where even though they are a sizable minority, they're beaten down every time. So why stay, they ask. Some have already begun the migration process, in fact. But as long as the federal government institutions retain their current stranglehold, especially the courts, exactly how much freedom will such political migrants have once they land in their new red state? Well, the answer? Not much, because the Marxist left continues to use the federal courts and the media to defeat anything that political conservatives wish to do. Now, if we take this paradigm and shift it to the church, the same phenomenon is happening. Theological migrants, we could call them, sick to death of the homo clergy crowd, threatening the souls of their families, are also on the move. They are deserting Church of Nice parishes, more and more reverting to homeschooling and swelling the pews of parishes and oratories with reverent, mostly Latin masses. Some drive hours every Sunday to such masses, blowing right past Church of Nice parishes along the way, with their social justice, pro-gay, illegal immigration, fake climate change messaging being crammed down people's throats. In short, they've had it, and they're doing what they can in the immediate moment to escape. And for the record, the political division present in the country, the wildly opposing worldviews, one expressing belief in God, the other material atheism, were set loose on the nation by the Marxist invasion of Catholic clergy, which cleared the way for the church to give up the social battle, to throw the towel in on the culture war. Looking down the road, and perhaps not that far, it seems inevitable that a mass migration will begin taking place in the U.S. because a small one already has. Hopefully, it won't be violent, but that possibility is absolutely not off the table because things have gotten that bad. The red state crowd will fill up their states with like-minded citizens and separate from the blue state crowd. America was always only a great social experiment anyway, and so now we face the reality, or at least the possibility, that the experiment has failed. The evil-minded anti-God crowd first used the system and then usurped the system, and now is a few short steps away from taking full tyrannical control. If you're a politically conservative type, you will be considered an enemy of the state, and there will be retribution. That's already here to a degree. How many people have lost their jobs because of their views? How many more have been censored or deplatformed by tech giants for their views? No crimes have been committed, just views expressed. But that's enough, apparently. So before it gets too impossible to recover from, the red state nation seems like a possibility on the table, which is why some are actually wondering about it. These folks would have to get together and compose their own constitution, one that sort of sews up the loopholes in the original one that the Marxists have been able to exploit. This constitution would define family correctly, forbid abortion expressly, bring an end to any and all government schools, reject any commercial enterprise from operating within the borders that promoted pornography, contraception, active homosexuality, and so forth. Your political ideology would absolutely matter. Liberals and Marxists would be arrested and imprisoned, just as conservatives would be in Blue Nation, as we already see with some pro-lifers. Marxists already caused the collapse of one civilization. This one, the theory goes, would be formed to prevent that from ever happening again. Kids would be safe, not exploited and brainwashed. In short, a nation built on morality where the family is the central focus, Western civilization reborn. And in the blue state hell that would remain, it would take less than a generation for the entire rotten mess to disintegrate. America's big cities today are little less than giant cesspools supported by federal tax dollars robbed from the hardworking middle class. So let them rot. They used concentrated power to overwhelm simple people wanting to earn a living for their families and not deal with drug addiction, skyrocketing teen pregnancy, and all those evils. And how would the church fare in these two new nations? In red America, there would be no more loopholes for wicked bishops to hide their dastardly deeds. They would be subject to the same levels of financial transparency and scrutiny as any other enterprise. No more hiding behind the phony separation of church and state for anything. Child rape, cover-up, misdirecting hundreds of millions, billions of dollars from their intended use. In blue America, since it would be completely run by anti-God Marxists, they wouldn't last long, as every civilization which rejects God and natural law is doomed. Bishops' property would be confiscated and they would be imprisoned, or at least the handful who would not have converted to the communist side, which some, as we know, already have. Two official Americas would actually be a little bit more honest because it's what we currently have now in practice, and the one is ripping the other to shreds. The truth is, we're already living in something of this construct now, depending on where you are, so why not just formalize it, the thinking goes. Make the break and then sit back and see which side prospers. The side that has children or the side that kills them? The country that fosters racism and violence or the country that has no need of that? The country that secures one vote for each citizen or the country that fundamentally perverts the electoral process? The nation that forbids Marxist propaganda from filling its airwaves or the nation that feasts on it? The side that values police and law enforcement or the side that attacks it? Of course, there are a billion details that would have to be worked out. There always are when you're building a nation. But that doesn't mean the nation shouldn't be built, is what the supporters say. If the details of all of this prove too insurmountable, well, then it's on to some other approach, the thinking goes. But this is what the founders did in 1776 and even said so in the first words of the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind, requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Now, for clarity, this isn't an official position of Church Militant, but these sorts of things are even coming up at all. These discussions, that they are even happening, suggest that we have reached a whole new precipice in America. If something like this were to happen, what North America would look like moving forward be sort of like an America 2.0, just buttoned up and more the wiser, and the Soviet Union 2.0. The church would thrive in one and be destroyed in the other. But the current situation is reaching the point of no longer being sustainable. God love you. I'm Michael Vorse.